There you go.
Oh, mate, honestly, the amount of times I do a training and hit to press record and then I have to go back and redo it.
Mate, you're all good. I only know that because I've done it before as well. Right, hello everyone. So, like as Dan said, I don't want to do the whole "this is who I am and what I do." It'll become very apparent as I move through it. I've known Dan for a while now through a different business that we used to be involved in, and now I'm now fortunate enough to call Dan a client. I basically now, which we're not going to cover today, I essentially help coaches with the mindset side of things, with the behavior change side of things, and actually the coaching skill side of things. So nothing really to do with training or nutrition or the physiological side, but that's kind of like where my background is. And again, it's one of the only things that I don't cover in this. Um, I spent quite a while going back and forth about what to talk about today because now all my time is spent talking to coaches and I don't really get to talk to many people that aren't coaches themselves. So I decided just to go with essentially my own personal story, and I really do hope that you can learn something from it and you can take something from it. I'm quite an open book, so feel free to ask me questions, like I said, at any point. This talk is called No Zero Days because that's ultimately I guess I guess like a philosophy that really got me through some fairly difficult times I'm about to share with you. So the stuff that you need to know about me in advance. First is I am an ex-fat bastard. When I say ex-fat bastard, I mean 150 odd kilos, living life to the extremes, food, partying, not looking after myself, kind of everything that came with it. But I guess something else that's worth noting is that I never had an issue with it really. I mean, from being like 12 years old to about maybe 22, I really had an issue with it. I tried everything under the sun to try and get my weight down. I was obese as a kid, I was obese as an adult. Then at about 22, 23, I got really, really, really good at American football. So I kind of just accepted it and adopted it because it started to be pretty useful for my sport and stuff like that. So yeah, I was an ex-fat bastard, but really kind of like happy, no real issues or anything like that, and just living life, which I think a lot of people, obviously not the people in this group, and obviously not you, Dan. I think a lot of people just assume that overweight people are just miserable all the time. And I'm like, nah, it's fucking mint, mate. Like, you get to eat what you want and not really have to look after yourself. But obviously, there are some downsides that come with it. Um, I spent the majority of my adult life as a professional DJ, so not just in England, touring the world, festivals, clubs, raves, everything that came with it. So, on top of the overweight, unhealthy lifestyle, throw a load of partying, throw a load of drink, throw a load of drugs, throw a load of all nighters, no sleep, and that side of things into it, and just being in kind of like toxic environments. It taught me a lot, but it also nearly killed me, as we'll cover. Weirdly, so ex fat bastard, ex party animal, also ex international footballer. So I spent 2.5 years. I played American football since I was 16 years old. I spent 2.5 years living in Australia, playing for the state of Victoria, flying around the country, televised games in front of thousands of people, all of that sort of stuff. So, bit of a weird concoction, and kind of like I try and include this picture in every single talk that I do because it really epitomizes my peak. So, like playing American football in a different country, televised games with people with your face on the t-shirt. It was just a different lifetime ago, and a lot has happened since then, which I'm going to cover. But the reason that I kind of like include this is A, as a bit of like a little bit of a brag, if I'm being honest, but B, to also kind of set the frame for some of the stuff that I'm about to talk about and the stuff that I had to go through. It's quite literally, in at least the sporting aspect of it, like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, as we're going to dive into. I loved a beer, a bag, and a boogie, and I wasn't afraid of making a knob out of myself, but we will skip past that slide pretty quickly. I am a self-proclaimed mindset wanker, which is the thing that is giving me so much in my own personal life, but also what I do now. Like, it's brought me closer to incredible coaches like Dan. And yeah, I love it, and I'll talk about this stuff all day. And I am known to go into a bit of a rabbit hole. So, like I said, if you do have any questions, please do ask. But I will try and keep myself in check and basically keep myself on track. So the reason that I'm telling you this is there are a lot of I don't know what sorts of accounts you all follow on Instagram and the types of people that you the content that you consume, but there are a lot of people speaking about mindset at the minute, especially on Instagram, that are, yes, I am a straight white male, but are all straight white males that were born into upper class households that have never really had to go through anything, that may be qualified in psychology at 21 years old and are now life coaches and telling people what to do and that sort of stuff, but they've never really had to go through it. And when I say it, I'll get into that soon. So I think it's worth highlighting that whilst there are a lot of people out there that do talk about it, I like to think that I'm not like the rest of them. And essentially, it's just to set that frame. So the reason that I'm so passionate about it, and the reason that I do what I do now and work with coaches, and the reason that I believe all of you guys should be so passionate about it, actually revolves around a bit of a personal story of like I've been kind of like alluding to of like what I used to say what happened to me, but I've changed the frame of that now. It's just like what happened in my life. So when I was over in Australia, again, I was playing for state. It was the highest level of competition outside of the US and Germany, where it's a fully professional sport. It was the highest standard that you can play at. So I was really, really going through it. We were training 3 days a week for the sport. I was in the gym 3 days a week on top of that. Then we had games at the weekends. If we weren't resting, we were flying, catching flights each week and that sort of stuff. I woke up one Sunday morning and basically I tried to say, I remember it was a Sunday because I should have had training that day. And I tried to say a sentence to my now ex, my partner at the time. And all of the words came out in the wrong order. And I was like, right, that's weird. So I tried to say the same sentence again, and all of the words came out again in a different order, but still not the right one. And my partner at the time, she worked in healthcare, and she was like, straight away, right, hospital. We're going to hospital straight away, which is what we did. So this expressive dysphagia is that it's the speech problems. I still don't know what. I probably should just Google it one day. I still don't know what a hemianopia is. Maybe somebody does. If you can tell me, that'd be great. But yeah, so I went to hospital and essentially, obviously, playing American football, fairly overweight. They sent me for 6 different tests. So I had my brain checked, I had my heart checked, I had my arteries in my neck checked with the Dopplers, things like CTs, fMRIs, ECGs, everything, full blood panel, the lot. And basically, it kind of got rushed through in Australia, which was nice. It came back, and Dr. David Izon, I've got a lot to thank him for, but also I think he's a bit of a dick, as I'm going to cover why. Basically, he dragged me back in and he was like, right, there's some good news and some bad news. And I was like, it's an interesting way to frame a conversation in the medical office, but whatever. He was like, the good news is you are the fittest fat guy that we've ever had to run tests on. So your arteries are all perfectly clear. Your blood pressure is normal. Your blood work is actually really good considering the excess body fat that you're carrying. You are young, fit, and healthy otherwise. But the bad news is we found this thing while we were doing the test, which was actually unrelated to the speech thing. Still don't know what that was. We found this thing while we were doing the test, and you've got a bicuspid aortic valve, which is basically in your heart. So the main artery that is responsible for opening and closing as your heart pumps blood out to the rest of your body, it just wasn't working right. It had 2 parts, so bicuspid instead of 3, tricuspid. What that meant is over time, the cusps have calcified, they're not working properly. You are regurgitating blood back into your heart every time it beats. And it's basically developed into, your heart is now dilated, it's developed into an aneurysm, which is obviously bad, not good at all. But Dr. David Izon at the time, his guidance was basically, but you are young, fit, and healthy, you're playing elite level sport, just crack on, you're all good. It turns out I've since found out, and the reason that I think he's a bit of a knob now is it turns out that this is the same thing. So whenever you hear of professional athletes just dropping dead, so quite a few Premiership footballers, a couple of athletics competitors just dropping dead, basically it's the same thing. 1 in 100 men have actually got it. So, but it's something that you will never find unless you're actively looking for it. It just happened that I got it found by accident. So yeah, that's why I think he's a bit of a knob. So I remember a few weeks later, I went back in, and since I'd got this diagnosis, I then started I could have sworn down on my mum's life that I could feel my heart. Not like feel it beating, but I just developed this feeling, and I was like, I can feel it. I know exactly where it is. I was like, well, of course you do. It's in your fucking chest, right? And when it was quiet, I'd convinced myself that all of a sudden I could now hear my heart. Like I could hear the leak, and you could not have told me otherwise. I went in and spoke to David again, spoke to this doctor again. And on that day, and this is the bit where people don't really believe it, but I've got more doctor's notes later down the line that kind of show this. On that day, I got diagnosed with anxiety, but he never told me. He never told me that I'd got anxiety. He told me that I should potentially think about speaking to somebody, but the words "you have anxiety" were never a thing. Now, some people are like, well, that's a bit odd. And actually, for me, it was a fucking blessing because I wasn't labeled with having this thing. I continued my life not knowing any different, thinking, oh, it's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But because I'd not been told I got not got anxiety, my behavior didn't start to align with somebody that had anxiety. So actually, looking back, this is something that I'm quite thankful of. I don't know if there was any intention behind it or if he was just a bit of a shit doctor. Again, the next slide, you're about to see the sort of person that I was dealing with. So then I decided to move back to the UK and I went in to see him. I told him at this time that I basically needed all my medical records transferring back to the NHS. These were his notes. I only found this out maybe 2 years after being back. When I started to do a bit more research into my own condition, somebody told me you can contact any medical basically company in the world, any government-run medical company, and request your records, and they can't say no. So that's what I did. That's how I've got these notes. These are his actual notes, and he wrote without thinking that I would ever see it. When I said I'm going back to the UK, back to the UK. Good luck. You'll need it. Like fucking brilliant sound. So yeah, anyway, I'd found this thing while I was over there. I came back, life progressed. It took me a while to get through the NHS. In my head, the guidance was you're fit and healthy, keep playing. So I kept playing. I played 2 more seasons of American football when I got back. And then on the 10th of June, 2019, so the day before this photo was taken, I had a very, very weird moment. And there's no way to describe it other than saying, fuck it. I was at a festival in Manchester and it was day 2 of the festival and I'd taken a fair old concoction of drugs and I don't know what I'd taken. And I had this very weird, like out of body experience. And all of a sudden literally 1 second, I was completely fine with who I was. I had this weird like ego death thing. And 1 second later, I hated everything about myself. And I was like, I need to do something about this. It was nothing to do with the heart. It was nothing to do with my health. But I can't believe that I've let myself get into this situation. Again, I know maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I'm 6'3", so I'm not a small guy. I was 150 kilos in these photos. And I was like, I need to do something about it. So the next morning, I got up, I took all my photos, and I just got cracking. So I then started to kind of like make a little bit of progress. But I want to talk about self-belief, and this is such a basic concept, and it's probably potentially something that Dan's already spoke to you about. But I do think it's worth noting is talking about this thing because obviously I'm not sure what stage everybody's at in their journey. Some people might be just getting started out. You might have been doing this a little bit longer. You might already be making progress. You might be nearing the end of it. But for me, one of the reasons why I tried and failed so many times when I was younger is because I had absolutely fucking zero self-belief. And I almost like expected that it should just appear one day. Like I was going to wake up one day and be like, right, I'm fucking buzzing now. I can get this thing done with zero change in my reality. So still, when I'm talking to people, a big misconception is that you basically, you wake up one day, you have this self-belief, you don't know where it came from. So with that, you decide to get cracking. You get cracking for a little bit and the results show. And like, I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that linear, but the reality is that you've all been trolled. If that's the thing that you believe, I would say that it's probably not, because again, you are working with an incredible coach like Dan. But if there anybody is that is watching this now or that's watching this back, please don't start thinking that. Please don't go to hoping that you will just wake up one day and feel like you can do something, because unfortunately it don't work like that. I mean, I wish it did. I genuinely wish it did, but it doesn't. And the way that it actually works out, right, is unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you have to take action first, because the only thing that self-belief comes from is evidence, right? So you take action, assuming you're doing the right action and you're doing the right action consistently, you start to make progress. Progress isn't progress. Progress is evidence. Only when you have evidence, new information, new facts, new sensory input, can you then start to build self-belief. But obviously, once you've been through this cycle and you've got that self-belief, then continuing to take action becomes a lot easier because you can actually see all the effort that I'm putting in is making it worthwhile. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And I couldn't find another face. So here's a little smile. It's good, right? Action, evidence, self-belief. So the first question that I've got for everybody, and it's a rhetorical question, you don't have to answer it now, is if you are struggling with self-belief, whether it's on your journey, on your health and fitness journey, whether it is something entirely different, something related to your career or something related to, I don't know, maybe a sport that you play or anything, is if you are currently struggling with that lack of self-belief, the question that I always used to ask myself that I asked myself in 2019 is, so what? So what? Like, can I get started anyway without self-belief? Not, do I feel like getting started? Can I? Yes or no? Factually, can I get started without self-belief? Well, actually, the answer is yes. And I used to ask myself that on a daily basis. Can I make it through today without self-belief? Yeah, probably. Can I make it through today without self-belief? Yeah, probably. And I asked myself that enough times repeatedly and got on with it and made it through the day without self-belief that then, because of getting through the day, the evidence then started to show, which then gave me the self-belief. So I say this a lot, and again, I'm going to cover more of like my journey through it. But from that light bulb moment in that festival, the first 4 weeks were probably the hardest. And I know that this is not the case for everybody, but it's my experience. After that, I didn't struggle, not a single time. And I know that people might sit there and go, "Oh, well, it's all right for you because I am struggling," and I have got every bit of empathy for you. But I think because I was so set in my mindset then, after I'd started to gather the evidence, I was like, oh, I can do this. Okay, well, let's just do one more day and let's just do one more day and let's just do one more day. And that's quite literally how I got through the entire time. So I'd got started on this weight loss journey in 2019 in June. And then throughout that time, I was, like I said, I'd come back from Australia. I was in and out of the NHS. I was having all of these tests and basically updating the records on their system with where I was at and what had been discovered and all that sort of stuff. Up until this point, I'd been having MRIs every 3 months, 45 minutes in one of those machines. That's like a coffin, which if anybody's had one, they're not that pleasant, but it had to be done. And within a week or so, I'd get a letter basically saying no further progress, which is a weird framing for me, no further progress, because what they meant by progress is, has the aneurysm got worse? And it was no further progress, no further progress, no further progress. So I got used to this. This has been going on for 10 months by this point. I got back in December of 2018 until this one day that I got a phone call, and it was about 8:30 a.m. And I got a phone call from the 0161 number, the hospital number. I answered it straight away. And basically it was like my cardiologist at the time, Dr. David Hutchins, said, we've had the results from your latest MRI. We need you to come in and see us. And I was like, straight away, I was like, okay then. No letter, phone call, something's changed. And I basically said to him, okay, sound, luckily I'm self-employed. I live 5 minutes away from the hospital. I was like, when can you get me in? And he was like, can you make it in this afternoon? Second alarm bell. I'm like, right, fuck. Okay, cool. So I went down there and I sat in front of him, and he, for whatever reason, he started to make a bit of small talk, and he was quite a nice guy, quite a well-spoken guy, quite a timid guy. And I basically just said to him, look, what's the situation? And he said, well, the aneurysm has progressed to the measurement was 5.1 centimeters. And unfortunately, that means you are now borderline intervention. And I'm like, right, okay. In English, please. Like, what does that actually mean for me? And he basically said, basically at 5.2 centimeters, you are at complete risk of the aneurysm rupturing, which basically means lower left ventricle of your heart. Is it ventricle, atrium? I can't remember. I always get those confused. Dan might know. Ventricle, AV, innit? Fuck knows. Anyway, basically ruptures, game over, gone, good night, clock out. Thanks for showing up. Do not pass go. Do not collect £200. So I was like, right, okay. So again, what does that actually mean for me? And he was like, well, what it means is no more sport, no more gym, no more exercise, basically nothing that can increase your blood pressure. No little things like no running about with my dog anymore, no running upstairs, no jumping out of bed in the middle of the night if I need a wee, and like just little things that you'd never even considered. And I was like, right, okay, well, obviously that's shit, but it is what it is. So now what happens? And basically, what happened then is I went through a 2.5 year battle with the NHS to let me have open heart surgery. But during that time, and I'll talk more about like the battle in a minute. During that time, I'd even with having training removed, even with not being able to play sport anymore, even with having to be really, really careful, just by controlling my food, I managed to get the 70 kilos off. And I'm only going to leave that there. In fact, I'm going to get off it because it makes me feel really uncomfortable, and so does that one as well. But just by controlling my food, by controlling the controllables, and coming up with this idea of no more 0 days, it enabled me to keep moving forwards. I was able to zoom in, not out, and look at my entire everything that I needed to go through on a minuscule basis, sometimes an hour to hour basis, not a week to week or a month to month or however long, 3 months, quarters, whatever. Literally, can I make it through the next hour? Can I make it through the next day? Can I make it through the next day? And taking ownership of that really, really helped me. So when I say like the basically the back and forth and the battle to get open heart surgery, on that day, I then asked the question straight away. I was like, so what does that mean for like the rest of my life? And he basically said, again, 1 in 100 men have got this thing. You are borderline intervention, but you basically you can't reverse this thing, but you can stabilize this thing by getting all the weight off and adjusting your lifestyle and all of the things that I was doing anyway. What actually happened after I'd lost all that weight, I kept getting the MRIs every 3 months and every 3 months and every 3 months. And after I'd lost all the weight, what actually happened then was good in some ways, bad in others. I was 150 kilos with perfect blood pressure. I was 80 kilos and my blood pressure was really low. Whether I'd just got used to being overweight and my blood pressure, I don't know whether it was something to do with the fitness from the sport. So my blood pressure being low in the grand scheme of things, not the greatest, but in relation to my heart, actually pretty good because it meant my blood pressure, my heart rate was less likely to spike on any given moment, which means there was less chance of the heart aneurysm rupturing. So their guidance at that point was, well, we'll keep monitoring you every 3 months. You might have to have the surgery when you're like 65 years old. I was like, not a fucking chance. Like 0% chance that I'm going to live my life the way that I'm having to at the minute. No sport, not being able to fucking run up the stairs. Just all these little things like really affecting my quality of life. I was like, not a chance am I going through that. So I basically said to them, please, we do open hearts. And this went on quite literally from November of 2019 until July of 2021 of, please, can I have open heart surgery? No, you don't need it. Please, can I have open heart surgery? No, it's not an emergency. Please, can I have quite literally going in and going in and going in and going in. Now, I then met this one surgeon called Paul Waterworth, who I literally owe my life to. And it was early 2021. It had really started to affect me mentally. And I sat with this surgeon and I asked him all these questions, had a conversation with him, and he basically said, yeah, I'll do it. Like, of course I'll do it. And he said to me, you've never been younger, you've never been fitter. You're all good. Like, let's get it done. It was a 3% chance of death of during the surgery, 4% chance of infection, something else. And I was like, right, well, it is what it is. Like, people were saying to me, yeah, 3% chance is a really good percentage. And I just thought, if 3 out of every 100 planes crashed, would you still get on one? That's the thing that I had going in the back of my mind. But I was just getting on with it. And I'd met this guy and he'd agreed to do it. But then obviously it was bang in the middle of COVID. So emergency surgeries were coming in, things were getting pushed back. It was risky going in to hospital because I knew that I would need to be on a ventilator and all that sort of stuff. Until 3 days before this picture was taken, I got a phone call from the hospital basically saying, look, we've had an opening on the 2nd, which was a weird conversation because they'd told me in advance that this is what would happen. I wouldn't get notice because I wasn't an emergency surgery. I was an elective heart surgery. And I knew that if they had an opening, it meant that somebody that needed the surgery and was scheduled for the surgery had passed away. So it was a bit of a weird conversation to start with. And they were like, yeah, we can admit you tomorrow on the first. Sorry, we can admit you in 2 days on the first. You need to shield from now until then because it was bang in the middle of COVID. And we'll get the heart surgery done on the 2nd. So up until this picture and up until throughout this entire process, I'd met surgeons, I'd met cardiac rehab, I'd met CTCCU nurses, which is cardiothoracic. What is it? This is going to do my head in. CTCCU, cardiothoracic critical care unit. Yeah, so basically the ICU, but for cardio, for heart and lung issues. And I'd made them lay everything out it like just on a plate. So I knew based on the guidance that I've been given, I was going to spend up to a week on critical care, which is 2-to-1 bed watch. I knew the procedure. I knew they were going to open up my sternum. I knew they were going to put me on a bypass machine, so it's essentially turn my heart and lungs off, so they could do what they needed to do. I knew that they were going to wire me up. I knew that I'd wake up with basically pacer lines directly into my heart. I knew it was going to be fairly significant, but they'd said to me, you're going to spend a week on critical care, then you're going to spend another week on a normal ward, on a rehab ward, just so we can monitor you. You're then going to spend up to 3 months bedbound because basically your fitness will be tanked because of the ventilator. You're not going to be in a great situation. You're going to be all this, you're going to be all that, you're going to be all that. But in the conversation where they told me all this, I don't know why I really keyed onto this up to. You're going to spend up to a week in critical care and you're going to spend up to a week on a normal ward and you're going to be bedbound for up to 3 months. So I had back and forth with the surgeon and he basically said to him, well, yeah, they're the guidelines. That's what we see in most people to basically recover from this thing. But I also knew that most people that were having this surgery were like 65 to 75 years old. So I was like, right, okay, that's really, really interesting. And me, being a bit of a control freak, if I'm being perfectly honest, I was like, not me. Like, I don't know why. Call it ego, call it arrogant. I don't know, but I just knew it wasn't me. So I walked into hospital on the 1st of December and got admitted. I had the surgery on the 2nd of December, so literally the morning after. Has anybody had any significant surgeries, by the way? Because I can't remember taking this photo. The combination of morphine and gabapentin and everything else, it's fucking brilliant. Like absolutely. And I've done some partying. I've taken my fair share of extracurricular drugs, but this was fucking great. So I woke up on this day, on one day after, and straight away I was like, as soon as I started to come round, I was like, right, whatever I need to do now to put my best foot forward and actually control this situation, I'm gonna. And at the time, I'm gonna share with you exactly what I did to kind of get through this. The day after, so one day after the surgery, I'd responded that well to things, and the oxygen mask was stressing me out. So they took me off the oxygen mask, they'd put me onto whatever that thing is. And I was just responding like really, really well to the point where I'm like, I feel pretty good. Apart from I couldn't really move my arms and shit like that, but I feel all right considering what I've just been through. So remember, a week on critical care, a week on a normal ward. 2 days after having the open heart surgery, they moved me off critical care onto the normal ward. So I'm like, right, okay, we're on track. We're 5 days ahead of schedule. Let's fucking go. So they'd moved me off. They'd started taking all the lines out. You can't really see there. They'd already taken, so the stitches there, they'd already taken the 2 drains out, which were a big, like 1/4 inch diameter things. They'd started to stitch up all of the wounds in my groin where they put me on the ventilator and stuff like that. I got a catheter in at this point, which is a fucking weird experience. But yeah, basically like an absolute pincushion, but I was still kind of like responding really, really well. All the nurses, all of the doctors, the surgeon came back down to check on me. Just kind of nobody could kind of figure out what was happening, but just responding really, really well. On the 5th, so 3 days after the open heart surgery, when they told me that I'd be bedbound for up to 3 months, I'm like, can I have a walk? Can I go on a walk? And at first they were like, we're not sure about that. And I was like, please let me get out of this fucking bed. Like, let me go on this walk. Got my really cool things, stockings that you put on for surgery to increase the blood circulation and stuff like that. This lady, again, 6'3", probably 110 kilos at this point. I have no idea why they put this late. I don't know if she thought she was going to catch me if I fell or something like that. But anyway, had this walk 50 meters down the corridor and back, sat in bed, absolutely fucked. But I was like, right, that's a win. On the 6th, so the day after, they'd removed everything. All of the wires, all of the pacer wires, all of the drains, all of the everything apart from an emergency, what they called. Can't remember what they're called. Don't know. Thing into my hand, just in case they needed to actually power me full of any drugs. And again, felt absolutely great. The day after, I walked out of hospital. So up to a week on critical care, up to a week in a rehab ward, up to 3 months bedbound. But 5 days after, I've walked out of hospital. And I have no idea at the time what it was. I knew that I was doing certain things. I knew, and I'm going to share with this is not one of these stories where I'm just like, and I'm a fucking phenomenon because I'm not. I'm just a normal person that spent the majority of his life really, really overweight, but has just done a fair bit of work on his mindset. 6 months after that, I then completed the fan dance, which is basically the first stage of the SAS fitness selection test. Now, people can willingly put themselves through the fan dance. It's horrible. Like, if you've ever done it, fair play to you. I will never do it again. But I wanted to prove to myself and I wanted to prove to people that actually that there's something to this. I did it for charity, so I was doing it for other people. It wasn't about me, but I still managed to get it done. So all of this stuff, I look back and a lot of the stuff that I teach now, I'm like, what was I doing that other people weren't doing? When I was looking around the ward, I expected everybody to be like 80 years old. They weren't. I was the youngest in there by probably 10 years, but they weren't. There was people in there that had got young kids that were visiting them, and I'm like, what am I doing that they're not? This is where it might sound like I'm being quite harsh. They're laying in bed feeling sorry for themselves. They're not really doing anything about this. They're and I get it, it's shit. The pain was ridiculous. The little button that you can get for the morphine is fantastic. But outside of that, the pain was fairly bad and the food is shit and whatever, right? But they're laying in bed very much feeling sorry for themselves. And I'm like, maybe there's something to this. I kind of knew already what I needed to do. I kind of knew what worked. And I'm going to share some research with you now that hopefully hits this home. But I was setting myself goals, and I don't mean like year-long goals or 3-month goals, like quite literally daily goals or hour, like what do I need to do this hour? Can I stand up and sit down 3 times in this hour? The hardest goal that I actually had to set myself was they basically make you force yourself to cough because obviously if you when you've had your sternum they call it knitted back together, so steel wire around the sternum to kind of pull you together, your gut instinct is to hunch forward like this to basically protect the wound. So some of my goals were, can I sit up with good posture for 5 minutes and then go back? And these tiny little things of, can I move forwards? Can I do something? So setting these goals, getting into my journal, as wanky as it sounds, I don't mean like dear diary. I mean like prompted journaling, like answering questions. What is one thing that I'm looking forward to today? What is one thing that I can do today to make progress? What obstacles could I face today? What am I going to do about them? That sort of journaling, reframing things, cognitive reframing of taking situations that I thought at the time were happening to me, like I said earlier, and finding the positives, finding the reasons to be grateful, finding the lessons, really sitting and making myself do this stuff. Okay. Gratitude practice. I think this is probably the thing that made the biggest difference. So I work with a coach as well, a guy called Paul Moore. If you don't follow him, go and follow him. He's fantastic. I had a call with Paul. The hospital rang me and said, do you want open heart surgery? I rang Paul and said, fuck. Paul went, what I want you to do, as soon as you are able to use a pen, every single day, you need to come up with 20 different reasons why you are grateful for open heart surgery. And I laughed at him. I was like, you fucking what? Like, no longer able to play sport, can't go to the gym, been like this by this point now for over 2 years, and you want me to find reasons why I'm grateful for it? It was like, yeah, find 20 a day. And it was just matter of fact about it. And I managed to do it. And by the end of the time in hospital, I'd got 80 different reasons, not just rewording the same ones why I was grateful for open heart surgery. It's given me a new lease of life. I've now got an opportunity that if I didn't know about open hearts, if I didn't know about this situation, I would have died playing American football. I'm now able to focus on things with my friends and my family. All of these things that I've been telling myself that I was going to do and not actually doing, I can like tons and tons and tons and tons of things. And then finally gamifying it, of turning it quite literally into a game of, I have this. Dan, have you shared the game?
I don't know yet, which one?
Well, it's called the game. It's the one where it's you score yourself +1 -1.
Nah.
So there's a tool that I use. You're gonna have to share it now. You know that, don't you? There's a tool that I use where basically I turn my own recovery into a game, and basically scoring myself on an hourly basis of, did I move forwards this hour or did I move backwards this hour? No kind of like maintenance. Did I move forwards or did I move backwards? And then gamifying it to the point where, as soon as I achieved like 10 points or 20 points or 30 points, I'd reward myself. And I know it sounds daft, right? But some of the rewards that I was rewarding myself with, I'm a massive geek, and like I don't know if I can turn this around. Like I'm literally my office is covered in fucking Lego and shit, right? So if I score 30 points, I'll buy myself a Lego set. If I score 40 points, I'll buy myself a new PlayStation game. Just like little things like that, but it giving me something, a way to kind of like reward myself for making the right decisions and moving forwards. And they're the things that I was doing differently. So I realized, and I reckon before I knew all of this stuff and I'd been through it myself, if I'd have been in your position now, listening to someone say this, I'd have been like, shut the fuck up. You're full of shit. Get fucked. It's different for you. I get it. I get it because I was that guy. I was cynical. I just would not have bought this stuff. I'd have come up with every reason, an excuse, and justification why it was different for you than it was for me. If I was hearing this stuff, genuinely. But then as I started to kind of like really dive into this side of things, and like I said, end up on rabbit holes. There's some studies that I want to share with you, right? So this is the first one that kind of like really put me on this rabbit hole, on this path of going down this, right? So this obviously applies to me, but hopefully this shows you the power of it. So when it says positive mindset factors, it's all of those things that I was just talking about: the journaling, the gratitude, the reframing. There are more, but they're the big levers. They're the ones that the goal setting, the gamifying, they're the ones that really made sense to me. So research finders, and this is a meta-analysis, so not just one study, a review of studies, shows us that people that practice positive mindset behaviors on a daily basis have faster recovery from surgery and better outcomes in patients with chronic illnesses. Some of those chronic illnesses being fatal. So not just things that people are dealing with, diabetes, etc. Okay, some terminal illnesses, people have better outcomes. Now, obviously, the outcome isn't not death, but it's better quality of life. It's longer life expectancy. So we know that research shows us that. Okay. We then also know that people that have got a more positive outlook on life and more positive mindset, we know that those people engage in healthier behaviors. Exercising regularly, eating a balanced diet, getting enough sleep, not using alcohol, not using drugs to numb feelings, emotional regulation, all of that sort of stuff. We know that. Research shows us that, okay? We know also that people that engage regularly in mindfulness techniques, in mindset techniques, all of the stuff that I've just shared with you, we know that there's a lower risk of obesity. We know that they have lower blood pressure, lower incidence of cardiovascular related illnesses. We know that. You can't refute these things. We also know that people have a lower risk of heart disease, as I've just shared. This is where it started to really make a difference for me and the way that I look at things. So this is basically this study. Crum, if anybody is a bit of a geek like me, Crum does some incredible work into all things like perception, identity change, the physiological responses in your body when it comes to mindset. They did a study where they took two groups of people. The first group of people were shown basically a mini documentary about how stress is good for you. Stress is really, really positive. Stress is something that will help you become more resilient. It increases certain responses in your body. Basically, you are more capable of taking on challenge and that sort of things. Okay. And the other group was shown a video of equal length, basically telling them that stress was going to kill them. Stress is bad. Avoid stress at all costs. Get it out of your life. Just get away from it. Really bad for you. What they then did is they then set these participants challenges and they asked them questions after. So the people that had been told that stress was good for them had better results from the challenges than the people that were told stress is bad for them. But what they also did is they took blood panels of everybody in the study, and the people across the board that had been shown the video telling them that stress was good for them had higher levels of growth hormone in circulation than the people that thought stress is something that's bad. The people that were told that stress was bad produced more cortisol. So one of the stress hormones, some cortisol good, too much cortisol bad. But the people that had been told that stress is bad for you, as a result, produced more cortisol, which is the thing that's bad for you. The only difference was the framing of stress moving into it, the mind. So not only is the mind now having these basically changing our ability to put ourselves forwards, it's having a physiological difference in your body. It's changing the way your body works. And then finally, this is a longitudinal study that they did over years and years and years and years and years, where basically they get people in once a year, they'd ask them questions, they'd update like factors, like have people passed away, are they having families, are they having all of that sort of stuff, what's the health status. We know that people that have a more positive outlook on life live longer, which is fucking mind-blowing. So me sat here talking about how I was able to overcome this stuff in a fraction of the time by simply by doing these little things and putting myself forward on a daily basis. I really do. I don't want this to be a you're full of shit. I want this to be a fucking hell. Is it that simple? Now I said simple, not easy. There is a big difference. Okay. So some of the stuff that you can actually take from this, some of the stuff that, like I said, I did. Okay. So I was a firm believer that habits were the foundation of everything until I had a bit of a shift. So, open question now, and this is where I will sit in silence. And sorry, Dan, if this goes against some of the stuff that you talk about, is forming a habit or is forming habits, trying to form habits, helping you or harming you?
You can all just
I
unmute or drop a message in the
Oh, yeah,
chat.
I've got all the cameras close. So if anybody's got the camera on, I'm sorry, I can't see the thing. It distracts me.
Yeah, just in
Sorry,
the chat
Dan.
or
Yeah.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lewis. Nice to meet you. I think it depends on the habit. I think.
Yeah,
I
interesting. Yeah.
suppose.
There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. This what I'm about to say is purely opinion. But yeah, I would agree to an extent. So yeah. Anybody else? Is anybody willing to put the flag in the ground and say one or the other? It's not a trick question, by the way.
They help me.
Yeah.
I love a habit. I love routine. So if I can create something and it becomes part of my day and I feel the positive effect,
Yeah.
then it's good. And I love mindset. I do gratitudes every day. I do goals
Nice.
every day. I do a lot of what you said. And I slipped. So just before I started with Dan, I'd kind of let it all slip.
Yeah.
And I'd let those habits not be my habits anymore. And I really noticed the negative effect it had on me.
Yeah.
So habits, I love it. I love routine.
Nice. Yeah, good. No, great answer. Catherine said in the chat, helpful to me, positive habits are worthwhile, simple things are drinking water, steps, etc. Yeah. So I agree and I disagree. Isabel, yes, it can create something really good and a better mindset. No, because of the guilt that can come with it when you break that habit or you don't do it as well as what you have been. Okay, so
I'll just reference and say that me and Lewis actually view habits slightly differently as well. So I know what road you're going down with this. But
yeah. No, and I am gonna give context to it. So when I started to study, I'm now studying neurocoaching, which looks at the brain and fMRI and neuroscience and how it interplays with coaching and personal development and goal achievement and all that sort of stuff. And it's one of those things that I think has been kind of like misconstrued by the fitness industry. Like there's books out there like Atomic Habits, which are fantastic books, but there's a lot of information out there which the neuroscience side of it basically refutes and just says, well, that's not the case. So like you might have heard ideas of how many days, in fact, if I ask the question, does anybody know the number? There's two numbers that float around. How many days does it take to form a habit? 21. That's one of them. Yeah. There's one more number that's floating around.
90.
90. No, it's, well, maybe the two I know is 21 and 65. So there's all this research that shows you 21 days to form a habit, 65 days to form a habit. Now, a lot of the times that before this heart stuff and before turning into an absolute mindset dick, me trying and failing many a time, I'd try and willpower my way through to day 65 through to just got to do this 65 days and then it'll become a habit. Just got to get through it. And actually, what the research side of things shows us is that the things that we think are habits, tracking your food, getting your steps in, drinking more water, they're not actually they're not actually habits by definition. So habitual things are things that happen without you even having to think about it. You go to the toilet, you wipe your ass. Well, hopefully you wipe your ass after the toilet. Yeah, but it's these little things that are so ingrained, it would actually take more effort to not do it. By definition, that's what a habit is. So I think one of the things that I kind of like to talk about is moving away from this idea of habits, because if something is truly a habit, you actually don't control it anymore. And that takes the power away from you. So a lot of these things that I was doing when I lost that weight and I couldn't train, I was just dieting, I was tracking to a T, did not miss a fucking day. Actually led to a pretty bad relationship with food, but that's a separate story. I'd try and force myself to just do this on a daily basis. Just do this on a daily basis. Become a habit, become a habit, become a habit, become a habit. And then I get today 65 or today 70 or today 80. I'm like, why the fuck is this not just happening now? Why is this just, am I broken? Have I not done it right? Have I, what am I missing? What the fuck am I missing? Why is this not working for me? And I think actually this idea of habits, it disempowers you. I don't think it empowers you, because I tell you for a fact, took me 18 months to lose that weight. There was not a single day where I got up and subconsciously or unconsciously tracked my food. There was not a single day where I didn't have to put conscious effort into going out and getting my steps. There was not a single day where I didn't have to think about doing the mindset stuff, the journaling, the reframing, the gratitude. Not once ever did it happen automatically, which is what a habit is. I still had to think about it. So my opinion, and it is purely an opinion, is that I for sure believe that people should be practicing these things on a daily basis. It becomes part of your routine. But let me again, having lost all the weight after the surgery, I gained all the weight again. Not all the weight, a fair bit of the weight, and then I had to lose it a second time, is what it is. Throughout that entire time, I've collectively, I would imagine I've collectively lost over 100 kilos. It was 70 the first time. Yeah, over 100 kilos. Easily. None of it was habit. Every single day, I had to consciously think about doing the thing. I didn't just snap into consciousness and I'm out in the streets of Manchester getting my steps in. I'm having to choose to do it. And to some people, this next sentence is really disempowering, but to some people it's really empowering. You're going to have to think about this stuff for the rest of your life. And I don't think coaches tell you that. And I know Dan's not one of these coaches, but I think people like to sell you the dream of you work with me and that'll be it. It's not the case. Because if you stop doing the thing, if you stop choosing to do the thing, like Jade just made a really good point, she stopped doing the things and it had a negative effect. Well, if it was habit, it would have been more effort to stop than it would have been to carry on. So the first thing that I want people to think about is this idea of you get to choose every single day, every single thing that you do. From the moment that your eyes, there are only two unconscious decisions that you make every single day. And that's your brain waking up in the morning and your brain falling asleep at the end of the day. Every single thing between those two moments, every single thing is a choice. You could choose if you wanted to. I mean, I imagine some of you have got kids and partners and stuff like that and jobs. But if you really wanted to, you could choose to stay in bed. You could choose to, quite literally, not move a muscle all day. You could choose to not get dressed. I'm not saying choose any of these things. But my point is, and what really helped me, is this idea of you're in complete control of everything. You get to choose everything. You're responsible, right? So this idea of a choice for me and the people that I work with is way more empowering than a habit, because habits, like I said, insinuate that it just happens when it doesn't. You have to choose, and that's good. That this is a good thing because it means that you're in control. So we talk about choices. I've already kind of given you my opinion on this, and again, it's kind of a rhetorical question: is true or false? You always have a choice. I am not saying that the choices that you have to choose between are ever good, but you always do have a choice. You go to work and your boss is being a dick, you have the choice to not go into work tomorrow. Of course, there's going to be repercussions, but you do have the choice. I had the choice between not having open heart surgery and living the rest of my life not being able to do anything fun, or having open heart surgery. Two shit choices, but still a choice. So when you start to realize that, again, some people don't like this, some people find this disempowering, some people find it empowering. When you realize that between the moments of your brain powering up in the morning and your brain powering down at the end of the day, everything that you do is a choice. I believe that's more empowering than it is disempowering. And these are the things that we get to make choices about. Is I've got this out that I've come up with this idea. I read some Stoics philosophy ages ago about I think it was Marcus Aurelius that talks about only controlling the controllables, which I fucking love because it's exactly what I had to do. Yeah. But I think in this kind of like modern day where everything's go, 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 it's not that simple. So the way that I kind of like think about this, right, is there's these three circles, and in our inner circle is our circle of control, and they're the things that only we get to choose. So we whether we realize it or not, you get to choose what you think about. You get to choose how you feel. You get to choose what you say. You get to choose what you do, what you wear, what you eat. Literally, they are your choice. Okay. Outside of that circle, we have our circle of influence, which are the things, exactly what it sounds like on the tin. They're the things that you can influence, but they're not only your decision. So things like where you and your family are going to go on holiday if you're going to go away this year, or what you and your partner are going to have for a meal when you go out on Saturday night. Two people or more than two people involved in the decision-making process, you have some influence, but it's not just your choice. And then outside of this, it's the circle of awareness. And this is everything else. The weather, the traffic, what your favorite football or rugby or whatever team are doing, which celebrity is shagging who on Love Island. All of these things there's nothing you can do about it. Literally nothing you can do about how bad the traffic is. There's nothing you can do about what the weather is doing. There's nothing you can do about what your football team did at the weekend. There's nothing you can do about any of these things. But having worked with quite literally hundreds and hundreds of people on this stuff, this is where people spend the time. They allow themselves to get negatively bogged down. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this is after sharing my own story and the research with you, positive mindset beats all. Not all, most things, okay? But people are allowing themselves to not be in a positive mindset because of the fucking weather or the traffic or the boss being a dick or insert whatever reason. So just because you don't get to control these things doesn't mean that you don't get to control how you respond to them. So I went to Norway a couple of summers ago, and even in the summer, rained every single day. We went on this guided tour of this village. It was fantastic, fascinating. This Norwegian guy, really, really funny, was talking to us, and the rain is that bad in Norway that they have 19 different words to describe rain. Just kind of like the Eskimos or the Inuits, I can't remember what the politically correct term is these days, have however many words to describe snow. The Norwegian people have 19 words to describe rain, different types of rain. Now we have like basically rain or that shit mist that gets you soaking through. They have 19 words to describe rain. That's how much it rains there. Regardless of that, one of the happiest populations in the world. And they have this saying, which I was like, that's fucking genius. Okay. The Norwegian people say there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. And if that puts this into perspective for me, it's like, so if you don't like that it's raining, wear a coat. If you don't like that you get stuck in traffic, leave earlier. If you don't like that your football team keeps losing at the weekend, stop watching them. And what I want to do is empower you guys, hopefully, to focus more on this stuff and not let your mindset get affected by the stuff that you've got no influence over whatsoever. And the final thing that I want to share that really, really helped me, and this is not some macho bollocks telling you to force yourself, there's a follow-up question. But when I was really, really struggling and I wanted to have these no zero days, which I'm about to share with you in a minute, I used to ask myself this question of, if I had a gun to my head right now, could I do the thing? Could I get up and do the walk? Could I not order from Deliveroo? Could I whatever? Could I? If the situation was right and somebody said, if you don't do the thing, you're done, could I do it? If the answer was yes, it wasn't well, I should probably get up and do the thing. If the answer was yes, it showed me, it put a spotlight on me and made me realize that I was choosing not to do the thing. So the follow-up question is, whenever you're trying to get yourself to do something, if you could do the thing, but you're not, the answer lies in why you aren't doing it. It's not in the fact that you're not doing it. It's in why you're not doing it. So I know I've ranted on, and I'm gonna wrap it up now. But the thing that I want to leave you with, okay, is this is true. Okay, your current situation in all walks of life is a direct result, a direct reflection of your past decisions, of the choices that you've made. Again, some people really empowering, some people really disempowering. But what's also true, by default, if you accept this, by default, that your current situation is a result of your past decisions, by default, you have to accept that your future situation is a direct result of your current choices, of the choices that you're making now. So this wasn't intended to be some mad, inspiring story about look what I can do if you can do it too. It was hopefully just to show you that you are in control. My wife's laptop is ringing over there. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't know who's trying to ring her. Is you are in complete control of your situation. And every single choice that you make aligns with a version. This is the goal, right? This is the game. This is the idea of the game. Every single choice that you make that aligns with the version of yourself that you want to be gets 1 point. Okay? And the more of those choices you make a day, the more points you get on a daily basis. My challenge is don't have any more 0 days. So if the only thing that you can choose to do that day is to drink more water, or to get your steps in, or to put it into a work frame, get a bit of work done, send a message, answer an email, whatever, okay? This is what got me through. Yes, it's the journaling. Yes, it's the reframing. Yes, it's the gratitude, all of that sort of stuff. But I set myself the challenge of during this recovery, you are not allowed to have a day where you don't do a single thing that moves you forward. So that's the note that I want to leave you all on. And again, I do apologize that I do get a bit ranty, and hopefully you all found that you all went on the empowering, not the disempowering side. But by default, if you don't have any more 0 days, you always move forwards.
Legend. All right, there's a few of you left in there. Any questions or on stuff or takeaways? All right, I'll go over a couple, and you go over jump in. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for that. There's a couple of things that you said there. That's something that we also touch quite a lot on with our clients, but it's something that I think is always good to re-note and kind of really think about. Is the first bit was the action first to see the evidence, and kind of sometimes you need to keep doing the thing to start seeing the results before you actually believe it's going to be true. Like I think obviously we see it quite a lot, especially at the beginning of people's journeys when they haven't seen the evidence for the long-lasting results, or they haven't seen the evidence that it's starting to work. It's sometimes hard to stick to it, but doing that one thing every day will then lead to seeing the results, and then lead to the belief that will come. Is a big thing. So
sometimes you literally have to wake up and choose violence. And what I mean by that is sometimes you're gonna, let's be realistic, right? You're gonna wake up some days and be like, why the fuck am I bothering? Sometimes you've just got to choose violence. And the thing that I always kind of think about, the point you just made is bang on the money. The thing that I always think about is the only way to guarantee that you don't see those results is to not do it. If you do it, there's a chance you'll see the results. If you don't do it, you definitely won't. So it's like, again, sometimes it's just being like, for fuck's sake, I hate everything about this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Have you seen the meme where it's like, I'm gonna go outside for my mental health walk? It's like sometimes you just have to force yourself to do these things.
yeah, 100%. And that is 99 times out of 10, out of 100, you'll feel better for doing it, but that one time maybe not. But there was another thing, yeah, a couple more things to kind of break thing, which is I think a lot of people get bogged down into the end goal, or like the big goal that they're trying to achieve, and it's more about breaking it down. And one thing that like why I love your story is that breaking it down hour to hour or day to day. Like we've got some clients that their life is so hectic, they literally have their schedule down to the minute. And I think some people don't do that enough and get it back down to just like, what can I do today, rather than what what happened yesterday or what's going to happen for the next 3 months. Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, I used to. I say I used to. I still do. And again, I'm a human being. I literally started another deficit today because I've just gone through a surplus and all that sort of stuff. And today, even today on day one, there's been times where I'm like, can I just get through this next hour without making any decisions that score me -1, move me further away. And I think the game that I was talking about, there's like I created rules and stuff to it, and it really helped me and it really helped my clients. Is set a repeating alarm in your phone if you're able to. Obviously, if you're employed and stuff like that, it's a little bit different. Wake up in the morning, set a timer to go off in 1 hour. Just make it to the next alarm. And I know that sounds mad, but you do that. Let's say you're awake 16 hours a day. You do that 16 times in one day. That's a fucking really good day. You do that. You're able to do that 5 days out of 7. You really made a dent in it, and it's just chaining these things together. I think people get. I don't know what the switch was for me to break it down into that daily basis, but if you'd have told me at 150 kilos I was gonna have to diet for 18 months, I'd have just been like, fuck off. I'm not doing it. Like I'd rather stay fat. It's not worth it. But if you say to me, again, I'm quite competitive, you just get through the next hour. I'm like, yeah. It's almost like, yeah, of course I can.
Yeah, that's it. That more achievable thing, right? Than that thing. Yeah, and then the last bit there is the you're in control and the positive thoughts. Like you always have control over that next decision or that next thing. And again, like the not controlling the controllables, like someone else's decision is going to piss you off, but then you obviously have the choice of how to react to that. We obviously do a lot of work on that. So
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Any Jade, Trish, the last two, any leave remarks or questions before we jump off, and then I'll get into the group. I know there's a lot of people coming, waiting for it to get in there. So
Yeah, no, I have found it really good actually. Just about obviously like breaking those goals down into like doing something. I find I have such busy days that I'll just try and do something rather than like, especially like steps and stuff. Like I'll get to the end of the day and I haven't moved from my desk all day, but I think, oh, at least if I get like an extra 1,000 in, I've done something more than going and sitting down.
Yeah, that's meant genuinely. I know, like, it might feel small, but those are the things that add up. Really, really do add up. Sometimes, like I said, genuinely, where is it? It's on the floor next to me. Got my journal here. Sometimes mine is quite literally. Can you just answer that question?
Beef up at the
Yeah, sometimes it's not even getting out and getting 1,000 steps in. It's just what's one thing that can move you closer to whatever your goals are that you've agreed with Dan. What's one thing that will move the needle a little bit?
Yeah, I have found that quite good. I think where I set my goals at the beginning and like I think about 8 months on now, like I've hit most of those goals. So it's definitely worked because before I would have that all or nothing. Like if I hadn't done something, I'd be, oh, I'll just start again tomorrow instead of actually just trying to do a little bit day by day.
Yeah, nice.
Trish, anything? Thank you, Jade, by the way.
Right.
Sorry, I have to apologize. I was kind of half listening. I was in a physio appointment with one of my kids, and I couldn't listen to it. But I am going to listen back because it does sound really interesting. So that's why I asked for it to be recorded. I was wondering about that earlier on. So I really apologize for participating and not really listening to you. But I will listen back. I promise. Yeah. Thanks,
Nah,
for asking.
I hope you or your kid. I don't know who's getting physio. I hope you're all right.
Oh, she has a bit of a sprain in her ankle, a bit neglectful parenting, making them go dancing on their sprained ankle. So it's fine. It's grand. Thanks all the same.
Perfect. Yeah, it has been recorded.
Thanks, Daniel.
I will drop it into the group. Hopefully, it doesn't take me as long. Last time, it took me about 25 hours to load it up onto YouTube before I could put it onto the thing. So I'll hopefully have it on there tonight, or if not, I'll drop it in the morning.
Don't worry. Yeah.
For everyone else, I will obviously go through this as well. And then I completely forgot about that again. We did a version of that a long time ago, like I think probably when we first started working together. So I might bring that back for a client challenge. Should be a good one.
Yeah, it is a good challenge, to be fair.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
All right, well, I
nice.
appreciate everybody. I will stop the recording.